How's it going, everyone? How's it going? Welcome to another Q&A. I think the last time that we did this 2 weeks ago, we were covering a lot of things in chapter 1. Unfortunately, I was unable to do the Q&A last week, but no matter. We're going to go ahead and dive into a little bit more on chapter 2. So when you pass your exams, the state doesn't tell you guys what percentage you actually obtained. So it's funny enough, there's some people that, when we put out informational videos, like, well, that's not true. I passed with an 80% or I passed with a 70%. I'm like, well, that's obviously not true, because when you pass your exams, the state doesn't give you your percentage. They only put pass, okay? So where am I going with this? The three chapters that most contractors fail at is chapters 2, 4, and 5. These are the chapters that most contractors, when they are failing the state exam, it all ties back to these 3 chapters. So if you're looking at obtaining your license, you're studying, let's say you fail your first exam. It's not a big deal. I tell people it's not a big deal. Do most contractors fail? I would probably say most contractors pass on their first try. Let's say like 7 out of 10. From those remaining 3, when they're going through our program and they're actually studying, they're failing with 1 or 2 points. They're like 62 to 64%. All they need is a 65% to pass. And where they're failing at normally is these 3 chapters. Why? Because in these 3 chapters, there's a lot of information being covered. Okay, there's so much information being covered. So in chapter 2 alone goes over construction contracts. They're going to give you a minimum of 22 questions of just construction contracts. 22 questions in just construction contracts, okay? So I tell people, when you're reading the question, when you're going over the question, you read the question, all 4 options, you gotta find the actual key of the question. There's a lot of times you feel like, well, what is this question actually asking me? That's what you have to ask yourself. Because if you're reading the question very quickly, going through the options, sometimes you don't even realize, well, this question is associated with construction contracts. Chapter 4 has so many different things it covers. Just to name a few off the top of my head, it covers payroll, taxes, OSHA, public works, employer responsibilities or employer requirements, workers' comp. Look at all those different subjects in one chapter only, okay? In one chapter only. So when I tell you, hey, you got to focus on chapter 2 a little bit more, you got to focus on chapter 5 a little bit more, it's because it covers so many different subjects that, yeah, you're not going to know it. If you're the type of people like, well, I read chapter 1 already, what do I do now? Read it again. Because just because you covered it once or twice or 5 times doesn't mean that you know everything that's in chapter 1. I mean, even sometimes before the Q&As, I brush up on some of the information, right? Another thing that would be good is right before you take your exam, 30 minutes before your exam, you get to the testing center a little early, read the book a little bit, 30 minutes before. Get that last passing over of the book before you're actually taking your exam. So let's go ahead and we're going to focus on certain parts of chapter 2, but we're going to go ahead and explain a little bit more about the QI, the RMO, and the RME. A question here from Gio. What is the average pace or estimated time to take on the law book? That's a great question. So this is what I always recommend, you guys. And before I move forward, really quick, if you've been in the system, if you've been in the classes for a couple weeks now and you're feeling a little lost, maybe you don't have your trade book yet, maybe you haven't registered your book yet, maybe you haven't submitted your application to the state yet, guys, go ahead and call that number there. 951-742-8181. The number again is 951-742-8181. They're going to get you guys back on track, okay? And it's very common, you guys. You know, life happens, work happens, you get busy. If you are feeling a little lost, you don't have your trade book yet, you don't have your company set up yet, you haven't submitted your application, and you've already been in the system, in the classes for at least, 4 or 5 weeks, let's get you moving. Let's get you moving, because even though we're in July right now, we're pretty close to the end of the year. So keep in mind, when we submit the application to the state, to the CSLB, it takes at least 2 months before you're taking your exam date. So let me repeat that. From the day you submit your application to the state, it's at least 2 months before you're taking your exam, at the very least. So if we're in July, I don't even know what date it is, let's say July 20th, we're talking about if you submitted your application today, you're not testing until August, September, maybe the end of September, so September 20th to September 30th. Just to give you guys an idea. It's not a rush, but it's just to give you guys an idea based on your goals. Now, to answer the question about the Army, the Q, we're going to go ahead and focus on that. But what is the average pace that you should be reading your book? So knowing that's going to take you at least 2 months to get your exam date, right? To get your license, you're probably looking at around 3 to 4 months, depending on how fast you're actually moving. If you guys are reading 5 pages a day, but when I say 5 pages, it's not, let me read it as fast as possible. It's not the TV's on in the back and you're playing around with your kids, or you're fighting, with your spouse. It's 5 pages a day, really well studied. Like you retained what you actually read. You understood what you actually read. If you do 5 pages a day, you're covering 1 chapter a week. Meaning, by the time you're taking your exam, you covered this book 2.5 times. And some people ask me, well, 2.5 times, do you think that's enough? If you do it the way I said it, yes, because you're not texting, you're not working on an estimate and reading. You're like literally sat down and you're focused on what you're actually reading. 5 pages read a day will be enough, okay? Now, let's go ahead and answer the Army, the RMO, and the QI. So let's go ahead and go to chapter 1, page, I want to say it's 6, right? That's where they talk about that. Yep, chapter 1, page 6. The very first paragraph, you guys, that's where we're going to be at. Chapter 1, page 6. So it says, the very first paragraph tells you, California contractor licenses are issued to one of the 4 business entities, not to a living person, okay? So this is why we need to register your business prior to submitting your application to the state. There's too many people that are trying to find an out of this, and I don't really get why. It's just an additional step that you have to do, which is normal. You having your license is not just a little piece of paper. By you getting your license, it means you're an actual company, you're a registered company, and you're allowed to perform that work or those projects legally, okay? So even if, some people try to say like, well, I'm gonna outsmart you, I submitted the application under my name. Well, even if you did that, you automatically chose a solo owner. Like, no, I didn't. Like, well, yes, you did. Because if you submit it under your name, literally you just put your name, your first and last name, that's a solo ownership, whether you like it or not, okay? So the licenses are issued to entities, business entities. There's no way around it. You have to decide on a solo owner, on a corporation, on an LLC, or a partnership. Now, there's a lot of pros to each one. There's a lot of cons to each one. You have to find the one that works best for you in your situation, okay? We're not talking about what's best for your friend or your boss when they took the exam, or what they did. No, what works best in your situation based on the laws that you guys read. Ahí está el número. Ahí está el número para que pueden llamar, okay? Now, every single one of these entities, okay, every single one of these entities has a QI. Who is the QI? The QI is the person that is qualifying that business, the person that holds the license, the person that took and passed the exams, okay? So any licensed construction business in California, any licensed construction business in California at all times must hold a QI. They have to have a QI somewhere in that business. What does that mean? That means that any licensed construction company, active, not suspended or revoked, but active, they have a QI, meaning they have someone that went to the state and passed the exams. This is why it's impossible for you to buy a license, right? There's a lot of people in the industry that they're like, well, can you just sell it to me? Like, I know you can do something. Like, no, it's an actual state license. You can't buy a state license. You can rent one legally, which we're gonna get to with the RMO, as long as you follow the laws pertaining to that, but you can't buy a license. If anybody ever tells you, I'll sell you my license and my business for $10,000, $20,000, $50,000, it's a lie. They can't do that. You cannot buy a state license. If you could buy a state license, I'd be rich. I wouldn't even be here. I wouldn't even be doing this anymore because I have my license. I'd be selling it. But since it's impossible, I'm here with you guys, right? So keep that in mind. The QI at all times, right, must have passed the exams. They are the ones that are qualifying that business, okay? Now, the QI is either an RME, an RMO, or you could say RME, RMO, and then there's another one, responsible, RMM, which is Responsible Managing Manager. In the solo owner, it is just owner. There is no, it's the owner or the RME. So if we're talking about a sole owner, okay, the QI is either the owner of the business or an RME. Okay, there is no RMO in a solo owner. Okay, why? A solo owner has no partners, and that is what a RMO technically is. It's a partner in the business. There is no partners in a solo owner, right? So the QI, the person that is qualifying that business, is either the owner or an RME. So that's what we're first going to discuss. Let's go ahead and discuss what is an RME. Now, the RME is a responsible managing employee. Responsible managing employee. Okay? Kevin, congratulations, man. Congratulations on passing your exams. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Passed the law and business exam on the 17th. Kevin, congratulations. Did you pass the trade yet, or is that the next one? Congratulations, though, man. Big, big congratulations to you. Now, the key word here is employee, okay? Because the RMO is different. What is the situation with an RME? How does that even happen? The owner can hire an RME or an employee to take and pass the exams. Meaning, if the owner hires an RME, in that situation, that employee is the QI, right? Because the employee took the exams. That employee has to work 32 hours a week or 80% of the week. This is a rule, right? They have to work either 32 hours a week or 80% of the week to qualify. And they can only manage one company at a time. Can only manage one company at a time. So what does that mean? It means if this employee says, well, I want to do side jobs, or I want to have my own business, what should they do first? What do they have to do first? They would have to first dissociate. They would have to dissociate from your business prior to doing that. Okay? Yeah, Kevin, go ahead and call that number right there. Go ahead and call that number, 951-742-8181. So in this situation, right, if the owner hired an RME, that RME must work at least 32 hours a week or 80% of the week. But they can only manage one company at a time, which means if at any point they say, hey, well, I want to start doing side jobs, or I want to have my own business, what do they have to do first? They would have to dissociate from the company because they can only qualify one at a time. Okay? They can't have multiple businesses. They can't hold multiple, they can't have like multiple businesses in the sense that they can't have a solo owner, a corporation, and an LLC. They would be stuck working as an employee for this owner. That is the employee though, right? That's the RME, that's the employee. What if, instead of it being a solo owner, what if we're doing a corporation? In a corporation, the QI is also an RMO, a responsible managing officer. This is a different situation, okay? Because the CSLB states the RMO must own 20% of the business unless they purchase an additional bond. What most people do is they have a separate contract, right? We do a contract stating, hey, well, this 20%, although it's a requirement through the CSLB, I will forfeit any voting powers. I will forfeit any actual ownership of the business once I dissociate, depending on what the agreement is, okay? This, it all depends on your personal agreement between you and your partner, but that's something totally different. Let's focus on what the CSLB requires. When we're discussing the RMO, it does state that the RMO must own at least 20% of the company. If they own at least 20% of the company, they can qualify up to 3 businesses with the same license. In my experience, you guys, the whole additional bond thing, and it does not work out correctly. In my experience, I always tell people, hey, put 20%. That is what the CSLB requires. Hold on to the 20% until, if you're the owner, perfect. If you're not the owner, whatever your partnership is, right? Because when you hold at least 20% of the business, you can qualify up to 3 business entities. Which means, I'm gonna give you guys an example. I have my company, Luis's Tree Service. This is my company, 100% owner here. It's a corporation, okay? I have my license number, okay? Let's say I have a friend or a family member, someone in the business that we pass off a lot of jobs together, right? I want to make some extra money. I can tell them, let's open up another business. It can be SD Tree Service, for example. This is my friend's business. Not even I'm not the owner. Let's just say friend's business. For the CSLB, I have to own 20%. So I have 20% ownership. If I want to be an actual partner, we can work that out amongst ourselves. If I don't, whenever I dissociate, I can just return that 20% back to them, no charge. SD Tree Service will have a different license number. And then I can charge them $2,000 a month or $1,500 a month for the license, right? You know, I'll help them out with the paperwork. We'll review some projects together. But this is a salary that they can pay me. And then I can do it one more time with a different person. These are 3 different companies. They are not the same company. 3 different companies. They all have different license numbers. They all have different insurances, different tax requirements. But what they're paying me is a salary, right? So this is the example of how an RMO can qualify up to 3 businesses with the same license. So if the question is, well, Luis, why would I do that? Well, what benefit is there to me if I do this? Well, it depends on what you want to negotiate with this business associate, with this friend. Most people do this with family members. Hey, my dad does the same thing as I do. I want to help him out. Or my uncle, my friend, they do the same thing that I do. I want to make a little extra money on the side, right? So this is what you guys, this is an example of what the RMO states, right? You can qualify up to 3 businesses with the same license, right? This is what that means, okay? Let's see here. So that is for answering that question. See, I have the experience and I have opened up an LLC. But I want to know if my wife can take the state exam for me, even though she has no experience in electrical. It's going to be a little difficult on the trade side. You know, if I'm being honest, the electrical test is very, very difficult, even for people that have a lot of experience. Is it impossible? No. Again, the state requires 4 years of experience. Is there people that don't have experience that have gotten licensed before? Yeah. If the state doesn't audit them, you have a licensed contractor that can sign off, they can take the exams. Now, I will say, even more so than the General B exam, the C10 is probably the hardest exam, just because there's a lot of, it's a hard trade. So would I recommend it? No. Is it impossible? No, right? So it really just kind of depends. If I have already read chapter 1 and 2, can I take the practice exam on the book? No. The practice exams in the book cover all 6 chapters. Yes, Luis, send me an email. Send me an email with your results. I'll let you know exactly where to focus. I finished the law book in 2 to 3 weekish. Moving into the General B book. When do we register a business to start the application? Yeah, Luis, send me an email. We'll go over it. When do we register a business to start the application process? So that's a good question as well. Again, for those of you guys that are asking, like, I want to talk to someone, go ahead and call that number. Right now we're in the middle of a Q&A session with a lot of the students. Even if you are, like, if you're students or non-students and you guys have questions, hey, I want to know about my trade book, my corporation book, sending the application to the state, go ahead and call this number right here. We're here until 7 o'clock. So take advantage right now that you're seeing me, that you're in the middle of studying. Go ahead and call that number, right? They're going to help you guys. 951-742-8181. They're going to let you guys know how we can get the book, how we can get the application going, how we can get your business registered, all that good stuff. Just go ahead and call that number, okay? Now, that's a good question that you actually just brought up right now. When is it a good time to register your business? And and this is what I would say. The best time to do it is within 3 to 4 weeks, a month, right? Once you have about a month in the system, that's a good time to register your business. Now, the reason why is if you have 1 month of studying, it takes about 2 weeks or so to register, to have everything. And then once we submit your application, minimum 2 months, right? So we're saying that you're testing within 3 months. This is, you're testing, hopefully, depending on how fast you're actually progressing. The goal is to test within 3 months and getting licensed by your 4th month, right? Now, if you're like, well, Luis, I need to do this faster. Give us a call. We'll help you do this faster. But we're going on your guys' pace, right? Like we said, we definitely do know how sometimes people get busy, things happen. But we're trying to get you guys in that sweet spot of 3 to 4 months. Some people don't want to be rushed. Some people do. So the best way to do it is, hey, what's the next step? I've been studying for a couple weeks. What's the next step? Perfect. Go ahead and call that number right there, 951-742-8181, and we can go from there. I work for a company that is in a lot of CSLB violations. I'd like to build a case on them. Can you point me in the right direction? Yeah, so what you want to do is you want to go to the CSLB website, and there's actually a form that you fill out to submit those complaints. The only thing I would tell you is this, is most contractors find themselves in a difficult situation when they're reporting their construction companies, because if they shut them down, then it's possible that you're out of a job as well. So if you are going to do it, just know that potentially if the CSLB or other state departments get involved, like OSHA, which is the most common one, if they get involved, they can shut the business down, meaning that you can lose your job. So unless you already found a new job and you're already doing good, I would weigh out the options. There's a lot of companies that do that have a lot of CSLB violations, that are treating their employees and subcontractors like crap. So I just hope that when you do submit it, that you're already in a better place. Because if not, it can damage you financially. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, you guys, great questions as always. Yeah, definitely. Go ahead and do it. Go to the CSLB website. Just say that you want to go to contact us on the contact us portion of it. You scroll a little down and it'll give you multiple emails, multiple PDFs that you can fill out to do that. Okay. All right, guys. So keep this in mind, you guys. Really quick, on the YouTube portion, there's a lot of people that are asking what are the most important chapters. Again, 2, 4, and 5 are the most important chapters. They make up 65% of the state exam. Okay. That doesn't mean you don't study chapter 1, 3, or 6. It just means that you want to give some extra attention to these chapters. Okay, definitely give some extra attention to these chapters. These are the chapters that you really want to sit down and read multiple times. No matter how many times you've read it, go back and read it. I have too many people that tell me, I know the book like the back of my hand. And then when I ask them a simple question, it's not quick. They can't answer it quickly. They're stuttering. They're like, oh, well, let me think. And it's like, if you know the book like the back of your hand, you got to have it pulled up like this, right? Even me, sometimes I'm like, okay, well, let me go back maybe 15, 20 minutes before the Q&A, 15, 20 minutes before I do a live class, I'm reading the book again, right? Refreshing the information that I should already know, but giving it that refresher. So there's no such thing as too much studying. You don't want to look for shortcuts. You don't want to say, well, what's the least amount I can do to get the result? You want to say, well, you'd rather be overly prepared than underprepared for sure, okay? All right, guys, before I go ahead and switch over to Spanish, once again, you guys, if you already have a couple of weeks in the system, I would say anywhere between 3 to 5 weeks, and you're looking at moving forward, or you haven't got your trade book, you haven't registered your business, you don't know about the work experience form, you haven't submitted your application to the state, go ahead and call this number here. We're here until 7, 951-742-8181. That's the number that you want to call. Of course, if you're from a particular location, we'll go ahead and review that with you. But go ahead, 951-742-8181. Okay. All right, you guys. So from here, I'm gonna go ahead and switch over to Spanish. Again, we're doing this Q&A live on our YouTube channel. If you guys have questions here on TikTok, even though we can't really answer too many, go ahead and call the number. You can see all the information there. They'll answer your call, answer all your questions. Okay? All right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to Spanish now. Amigos, ¿qué tal? ¿Cómo están? Como siempre, por favor, antes de comenzar, abren sus libros aquí de Blue Collar. Vamos a dar mucha información importante que tienen que saber. Los vamos a enfocar en partes del capítulo 1 y partes del capítulo 2. Sí tuve unas preguntas muy importantes por el correo electrónico del capítulo 2, pero yo sé que hay muchos que tienen esas preguntas del capítulo 1, especialmente del RME, el RMO y esos títulos, ¿verdad? Los vamos a enfocar allí también en esa porción. Y los vamos a enfocar ahorita en la página 6, capítulo 1, la página 6, ¿ok? See here. If I am the sole proprietor, I must pay compensation to the employee. Well, yeah, it would be if you have an employee, you guys already have like a fixed salary or a salary plus bonus. It would be a combination of something like that. Yeah, I would have to see your entire form, Luis. Once I see your entire form, I can tell you exactly where to focus. If you're at 63%, that means you're 2% away from passing. That would not be something I would stress out about. Once you're at 63%, that means you are retaining a lot of the information. Remember, the state is trying to trick you, right? So it's not something that you want to be stressed out about. It's something you have to look at it as a win. Like, hey, I'm almost there, right? I'm almost there. I'm so close to passing. There's just a couple questions that are confusing me, right? I was offered a job as a subcontractor, and the main contractor wants me to sign a 1099. More than likely, they want you to sign a W-9. Say total of $10,000 paid for me, $7,000 in materials and labor for workers. Will I still profit after tax? The only reason why they would issue you well, here's the thing. If they want you to sign a 1099 for $10,000, you have to clarify. So this is kind of like where, even though it's not really part of the state exam, it's just kind of like a quick lesson for you guys real quick. Es una parte que ustedes tienen que saber, because I know I have to do it in Spanish now. So really quickly, if they want you to sign a 1099 for $10,000, number one, they shouldn't have you do that. It should be a W-9. And number two, you need to purchase the materials. You need the W-9 from the supplier. Because if not, you have to report $10,000 as income. If you don't have the W-9 from the materials, they're charging you $10,000 worth of income, even though I think you said only $3,000 was going to be income. So keep that in mind. I wouldn't sign that because that's not the way it should be. Okay. All right, amigos, vamos a enfocarnos en el capítulo 1, la página 6. Capítulo 1, página 6. En el primer párrafo donde dice tipos de licencia. En el primer párrafo donde dice tipos de licencia. ¿Qué te dice el primer párrafo? Te dice, las licencias de contratista no se lo dan a la persona. ¿A quién se lo dan? Se lo dan a las entidades, amigos, a las entidades. ¿Qué son las entidades? Pues es la propiedad exclusiva. Okay. Que la propiedad exclusiva es el solo owner. ¿Dónde se registra la propiedad exclusiva? La entidad solo owner se registra con la ciudad. Tú vas a la ciudad, es cuando mucha gente a veces lo confunde como con una licencia, ¿verdad? Oh, pues yo tengo la licencia pero de la ciudad. Eso no es una licencia. Simplemente lo que hicieron es registraron un negocio, ¿verdad? Y se registra con la ciudad, right? The city, okay? La propiedad exclusiva es un dueño solamente. Es imposible tener socios, recuerdan, porque hay muchos que no lo entienden y sí te afecta en el examen. El solo owner no es posible tener socios, no puedes agregar socios en el futuro. El solo owner es una persona solamente, único dueño, la propiedad exclusiva. Ahora, hablando del QI, que es la persona calificada. ¿Quién es la persona calificada en la propiedad exclusiva? Perdón, déjame cambiar eso, no sé por qué está haciendo eso. Ya, muy bien. En la propiedad exclusiva, el QI, la persona calificada, puede ser el dueño de la empresa o el RME, el empleado, ¿ok? En la página 6, capítulo 1, la página 6, donde ustedes ven RME, ¿ok? La persona calificada en la propiedad exclusiva en el solo owner puede ser el dueño de la empresa o un empleado. ¿Cómo es posible que hagan eso? ¿Cómo es posible eso? Ok. El RME es un empleado que el dueño del negocio va a contratar para que puedan tomar los exámenes. ¿Ok? En otras palabras, en lugar que el dueño del negocio toma los exámenes, el empleado va a tomar los exámenes. Ahora, si el empleado pasa los exámenes, el empleado obtiene su licencia, tiene que trabajar 32 horas a la semana o el 80% de la semana. Y solamente puede calificar una compañía a la vez. El error principal de muchos de los estudiantes es confunden la información que aplica con el RME, con el empleado, confunden esa información con la información que es parte del RMO, también en la página 6. Lo están mixteando, ¿ok? En este ejemplo, el dueño de la propiedad exclusiva no tomó los exámenes. El empleado tomó los exámenes por él. Si el empleado pasa los exámenes, el empleado tiene que trabajar 32 horas a la semana o el 80% de la semana para poder calificar a la compañía. Y solamente puede calificar una compañía a la vez, ¿ok? Esta información solamente aplica para el RME. Si la pregunta es, ¿quién puede ser la persona calificada en una propiedad exclusiva? Puede ser el dueño de la compañía o puede ser un empleado, RME. Pero ¿qué pasa si es una corporación o una LLC? Hay algo más que se llama RMO o RMM. Pero el RMO es un socio. El RMO tiene que tener por lo menos 20% ownership en la compañía. O sea, el RMO, el título RMO, tiene que ser dueño de por lo menos el 20% de la compañía. Obviamente, si el RMO es el dueño de la compañía al 100%, muy bien. Pero mínimo es el 20%. ¿Okay? Mínimo es el 20%. El RMO puede calificar hasta 3 compañías con la misma licencia. ¿Okay? Pueden ver la diferencia desde el principio. El RME solamente puede calificar una. El RMO puede calificar hasta 3 compañías con la misma licencia. Pero para poder calificar hasta las 3 compañías, tiene que tener por lo menos el 20% de ownership en cada compañía. ¿Ok? En cada compañía. Lo que está pasando en los exámenes de práctica, a veces lo que puedo ver de los estudiantes, es en lugar de decir, por ejemplo, ¿cuántas horas tiene que trabajar el RME? Se recuerdan este 20% del RMO y la están mixteando. Oh, pues tiene que trabajar mínimo 20 horas. Y pues obviamente eso no es la respuesta correcta. O dice que el RME, en lugar de calificar solamente una compañía, puede calificar hasta 3. Están mixteando la información. Otra cosa, recuerda, el RME, si el RME un día dice, pues yo quiero tener mi propio negocio, yo quiero hacer side jobs, yo quiero hacer mis propios proyectos, ¿verdad? Antes que puede ser sus propios proyectos, antes que puede ser sus side jobs, ¿qué tiene que ser primero? Se tiene que disociar de la compañía. Un RME legítimo que tiene, que está registrado con la ciudad, que está registrado con el CSLB, si realmente es RME, ¿ok? Antes que puede ser sus propios proyectos, antes que puede ser sus side jobs, se tiene que disociar de la compañía primero. ¿Okay? Saludos a todos aquí por nuestro canal de YouTube. Aquí estamos contestando sus preguntas. Permítame un momentito. Saludos a todos, que es su primer día. Aquí, amigo, aquí estamos contestando las preguntas de YouTube. Ahí puedes llamar a ese número para ver a dónde estás en tu proceso. ¿Okay? Muy bien, Miguel. Gracias. Aquí estamos. Ok, so vamos a enfocarnos ya que explicamos un poco del capítulo 1, brincamos a lo que es el capítulo 2 para contestar esas preguntas de los estudiantes, ¿ok? Ahora, hay que enfocarnos en el capítulo 2, la página 5. Capítulo 2, página 5, ahí vamos a estar. Donde dice contratos de mejora del hogar. ¿Ok? Capítulo 2, página 5. Ay, perdón. Si yo les doy la pregunta, que si la pregunta es, ¿a qué valor tienen que tener una licencia de contratista de los proyectos? ¿Qué es la respuesta correcta? Si la pregunta es, ¿a qué valor tienen que tener una licencia de contratista? ¿Qué es la respuesta correcta? Muchos se están confundiendo con la información que está en el capítulo 1, página 2. ¿Okay? Si se abren su libro a esa página, capítulo 1, página 2, están confundiendo esa información con la información en el capítulo 2, página 5. Cuando hablamos de la licencia de contratista, ¿okay? Estas son las preguntas que, aunque te hacen pensar, las tienes que saber, porque si no, ¿ok? Y si no, te van a confundir en el estado, ¿ok? Te van a confundir en el estado, ¿ok? Yo les digo, la licencia de contratista aquí, el estado te dice, si tú estás haciendo proyectos, remodeling, adiciones, landscaping concreto, de 1,000 o más, es cuando aplica esta ley, la licencia de contratista, los $1,000. Pero recuerdan, con el estado siempre quieren lo exacto. ¿Qué es lo exacto? Es 1,000 o más, que incluye ¿qué? La mano de obra y los materiales. ¿Allí cabe la respuesta? No. ¿Allí cabe la información? No. ¿Por qué? Porque en el capítulo 1, la página 2, ahí mismo te dice, solamente requieres la licencia de contratista cuando haces proyectos de 1,000 o más, que incluye la mano de obra y los materiales, o cuando ¿qué? O cuando tienes empleados. Si tú tienes empleados, no importa, automáticamente tienes que tener la licencia de contratista. Así de fácil. Ya si tú tienes empleados, ya no importa el valor. Tienes que tener la licencia. ¿Ok? Si el trabajo que tú vas a hacer requiere permisos, no importa si el trabajo en total estaba en $999, ya en total, no importa. Si el trabajo requiere permisos, automáticamente tienes que tener la licencia de contratista, automáticamente. ¿Ok? Eso es lo que está en el capítulo 1, la página 2. Ahora, ¿dónde estábamos? Capítulo 2, página 5. ¿Qué te dice el primer párrafo? El primer párrafo te dice, el estado de California te requiere un contrato escrito cuando el proyecto es 500 o más. ¿Ok? Amigos, estamos hablando de dos diferentes cosas. Uno es la licencia de contratista. La otra pregunta te dice cuándo se requiere un contrato escrito. Si la pregunta es, si leen las preguntas con calma y realmente entienden lo que te quieren preguntar, si la pregunta era, ¿cuándo se requiere un contrato escrito? O si la pregunta era, en un contrato de mejoras para el hogar, ¿a qué valor requiere el contrato escrito? Muchos todavía ponen 1,000. Y la pregunta no era de la licencia de contratista. La pregunta era del contrato escrito. Por eso les digo, toman su tiempo. Toman su tiempo. Porque esto, si yo me confundo a veces, imagínate ustedes que no hacen esto todos los días. Yo sí. Por eso es leerlo con calma. Y aquí, como mi amigo Luis también dice, pues no se te olvide el otro contrato. ¿Qué es el otro contrato? Si ustedes van al capítulo 2, la página que es, capítulo 2, la página 22, creo. Sí, capítulo 2, página 22. El contrato de servicio y reparación. Puedes utilizar este contrato en proyectos hasta 750. ¿Ok? Aquí está el problema, amigos. Cuando hacen las preguntas de práctica, si solamente se enfocan en preguntas de práctica, no van a entender esta información. No van a entender cómo el Estado te quiere confundir, porque no tienes la información como tu base. Tú tienes que saber que la licencia de contratista te lo requieren en proyectos de 1,000 o más, o si tienes empleados, o si el trabajo requiere permisos. Tú tienes que saber que en proyectos de mejoras para el hogar, el Estado te requiere un contrato escrito cuando es 500 o más. Pero también tienes que saber del otro contrato que te explican en el capítulo 2, página 22. El contrato de servicio y reparación. Y les digo adentro de las clases, ¿qué les digo? Amigos, este contrato tiene sus propias reglas. Hay cosas que aplican en el contrato de servicio o reparación que no aplican en el contrato de mejoras para el hogar, que no aplican al contrato de solicitud a vivienda, que no aplican a los comerciales, a lo público, que tiene sus propias reglas. ¿Qué son una de las reglas? Pues, por ejemplo, Tú puedes hacer el contrato de servicio de reparación en proyectos que no exceden 750. Pues, y la pregunta a veces es, pues Luis, ¿en qué me beneficia el servicio de reparación? ¿Por qué se me puede antojar hacer este contrato? ¿Por qué? Pues, y si leen el capítulo, allí mismo te dice que en el contrato de servicio y reparación, ¿verdad? No hay tiempo de cancelación. Recuerdan que en el contrato de Home Improvement, en el contrato de mejoras para el hogar, en el contrato de solicitud de vivienda, tenemos que esperar 3 días, que muchos no quieren esperar los 3 días. A veces tenemos que esperar los 5 días, que muchos tampoco quieren esperar, si menos 3, imagínate 5. En el contrato de servicio de reparación no tienes que esperar. En el momento que firman ese contrato, puedes comenzar a trabajar. Pero recuerdan, hay un límite y el límite es 750. So, no te da, a ver, pues es muy poco dinero, claro. Pero estos proyectos no son proyectos grandes. Son proyectos que 2, 3 horas, listo. ¿Qué es algo más que aplica con el servicio de reparación que no aplica en otros contratos? Pero, y si sigues las reglas del servicio de reparación, ahí mismo te dice, ¿verdad? El cliente se tiene que comunicar con ustedes primero. Tiene que ver ese comprobante que el cliente te llamó, te solicitó información primero. Tenemos que tener eso, ¿verdad? La otra cosa con el servicio y reparación que puedes ver en la página 22, no vas a vender servicios adicionales que no requieres para arreglar el problema original. Capítulo 2, página 22. No te deja vender servicios adicionales que no era del problema original. ¿Qué significa eso? Si yo te llamé para reparar el drywall, ¿verdad? Hay un hoyo, tienes que parcharlo, pintarlo el color que estaba. Me vas a cobrar 450, 500, no sé. Y luego te digo, pues también, ¿sabes qué? Quiero que me hagas un trabajo de pisos. Pues no se va a hacer en el mismo contrato, ¿verdad? Tú haces el proyecto en que te llamé primero, lo terminas, y luego ya si quiere más trabajo el cliente, un diferente contrato, ¿ok? So, no se vende servicios adicionales que no se requería para arreglar o solucionar el problema original. Y recuerden, amigos, que todo esto son diferentes contratos. Los aparecidos son el contrato de mejoras para el hogar y la solicitud a vivienda. Recuerda que los contratos, Home Improvement, mejoras para el hogar, solicitud a vivienda, así se ven. Así se ven, ¿ok? Ese es el contrato. Todo lo que te explican, y yo les doy las páginas, mire. Todo lo que está en la página 5 hasta la página, ¿qué era? De la página 5 hasta la página 21, página 5 hasta la página 21, ese es el contrato que te están explicando. Este es el contrato que te están explicando. ¿Ok? Todo lo que está en la página 7 que dice el down payment, el depósito, las cláusulas que son obligatorios. Recuerdan en el 2026, ¿verdad? En el 2026, amigo aquí de los contratos electrónicos, ahí llama ese número, 951-742-8181. En el 2026 agregaron esto. No era así antes. Esta es una nueva ley. ¿Ok? Esto aplicó este año 2026. ¿Qué aplicó? Y si tú vas a usar subcontratistas en los contratos de mejoras para el hogar, home improvement o solicitud a vivienda, home solicitation, le tienes que avisar al cliente. Antes no era obligatorio. Antes era, pues, un subcontratista llegaba, ¿qué tenía que dar el subcontratista? Su aviso preliminar. Pero hay muchos subcontratistas que no lo estaban haciendo. ¿Por qué? Por falta de conocimiento de los documentos. Por confianza en el contratista principal. Ahora el Estado dijo, si tú usas subcontratistas que no son empleados, si no es empleado, es subcontratista, tienes que poner sí estoy usando un subcontratista. Es obligatorio que el cliente sepa. ¿Ok? Eso cambió este año, 2026. ¿Ok? So, recuerdan, es importante, aparte de ver los videos, aparte de leer el libro, también checan las notas. Les agrego muchas notas en su curso, especialmente lo que agregamos para el año 2026, las leyes que pasaron. Todo está ahí, amigos, simplemente tienen que estudiarlo. Se meten en su plataforma, en cada capítulo hay notas, bajan esas notas, estudian las notas. Te damos más explicaciones en las notas, ¿ok? So, aparte, nomás para ya terminar con de parte de los contratos. En la página 7, todo lo que está en la página 7, ¿ok? Todo lo que está en la página 7 aquí, amigos. Esto aplica para el contrato de Home Improvement, que es el contrato de mejoras para el hogar, y el contrato de solicitud a vivienda. ¿Ok? 5 páginas al día, amigos. Así se hace. Bien estudiadas. Si ustedes ponen, ¿qué te digo en la clase? Aquí arriba van a poner ¿qué? Home Improvement, solicitud a vivienda. Mejoras para el hogar, solicitud a vivienda. ¿Verdad? Lo ponen aquí para ayudarles a grabar la información. ¿Ok? Ahora, ya para terminar este segmento, muchas gracias a todos los estudiantes que llegaron a la clase en vivo que hicimos en San José con el instructor Javier Gutiérrez. Javier Gutiérrez dio esa clase. Muchas gracias a Javier por dar la clase y a todos los estudiantes que atendieron esa clase. Apenas era en San José. Vamos a tener otra clase, les voy a dar la fecha muy pronto, los tienen que seguir en las redes, aquí por TikTok, aquí por YouTube, también lo anunciamos en Facebook, creo, las nuevas fechas de las clases que van a venir y los seminarios que sí vienen. Recuerdan que este sábado, día 25 de julio, sábado 25 de julio, tenemos el seminario en Sacramento. La verdad, este seminario ya está lleno, pero tenemos espacio para el segmento de cómo obtener la licencia. Ahí sí tenemos un poco de espacio. Abrimos otro segmento allí. Nomás mándeme un texto aquí. Si no tienes tu curso, no tienes las clases todavía, mándeme un texto aquí. Abrimos un espacio más tarde. Pero el seminario en Sacramento de los contratos, del marketing, de los seguros, eso ya está totalmente lleno, gracias a ustedes. Si no van a poder llegar, por favor, mándenme un mensaje. Si tengo gente en el waiting list que quiere entrar, pero desafortunadamente si es lo que estamos viendo, ya está totalmente lleno. Si no van a llegar, mándenme un mensaje, Luis, no puedo atender, puedo agregar a alguien más, ¿ok? Pero en el segmento de cómo obtener la licencia, sí tenemos espacio, ¿ok? Nomás mándenme un texto allí, 909-835-9890. 909-835-9890. Más mándenme un texto, Luis, quiero llegar al seminario y con mucho gusto allí le vamos a dar la información. Creo que el 22 de agosto vamos a estar en San Diego, ahí les vamos a dar más información. Este seminario es en Sacramento. Creo que vamos a tener el seminario en San Diego, sábado 22 de agosto. pero yo los voy a anunciar ya el lunes. ¿Okay? Amigos, pues muchas gracias por su tiempo, gracias por estar aquí, gracias por todas sus preguntas. Échele muchas ganas en el estudio, por favor, ustedes pueden, amigos, ustedes sí pueden, nada más le tienen que echar ganas, ¿ok? Y recuerdan, por favor, ustedes ya lo saben, pero una vez más, la escuela de contratistas número 1 aquí en California es Blue Collar Licensing, el del toro azul, el torito. Cualquier pregunta, dudas que tengan, cada miércoles aquí estamos para ayudarles, para apoyarles. A veces, de vez en cuando, sí se pone un poco más ocupado, pero cada miércoles regularmente aquí estamos. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes por sus preguntas, el apoyo. Les espero este sábado, día 25 de julio, en la ciudad de Sacramento. Muchas gracias. Para la próxima semana.